Good afternoon, everybody. The Irish Demon back with another video. Now, I know you're all sick of hearing about this whole thing, but this is not a Bash Dr. Dave video at all. In fact, quite the opposite. Now, some of you aren't going to like this, but I'm going to be defending Dr. Dave in this one. This is purely because I feel it's the right thing to do, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Last night, somebody sent me a link to a video by Vegas Valley Community Watch, which is an auditor, which I assume is from Vegas Valley. I can't say that I've actually watched any of his videos other than this one. And now I can understand why people would think that I would be interested in this video, especially given what's gone on over the last few weeks. And the video is entitled Dr. Dave the Beer Professor Exposed and Roasted, Bootlicking Drunk, First Amendment Audit Troll. I'm not going to read what it says in the description because basically it's going to be an issue for YouTube or whatever. But what I am going to do is I'm going to show you the video and I'm going to explain why I think that this is absolutely wrong.
It's number one, baby. But even out of town with that stuff. These guys are a fraud. Most of them are unemployed. Just about every one of them. They're unemployed.
Now, so as you can see there's a pretty extreme laundry list of alleged convictions there. And if you check the comment section, you'll see a load of his supporters in there kind of bigging him up for exposing and all of this kind of stuff. But there's one notable thing missing, and that is evidence. Now, fair enough, a lot of us, myself included, jump to conclusions all the time, absolutely. But when it's something this serious, you really need to be backing this up with evidence. Now, I already received an email today from somebody who was quite upset that all of this had gone on and is now accusing me of trying to work with this auditor against Dr. Dave. That's not the case at all. They came to that conclusion based on the fact that I had left a comment on the video asking for this person to provide evidence. And then that person commented on one of my videos and again mentioned that they would provide this evidence. So they provided me with an email address. I did send an email and I asked whoever the person behind this channel is to please provide the evidence of these allegations, and I didn't receive an email back. So then I commented on the video again and said I have emailed you, which they liked and heart loved or whatever the thing is called where you extra like it, which would indicate to me that they've read it, and still there was no response to that email. Now straight away the alarm bells started going off for me when I watched this and looked at the list of things that was alleged to have been done by Dr. Dave. There's a few reasons behind that. Number one, Dr. Dave has a lot of enemies out there, especially all these auditor guys. We all know the lengths that these guys will go to try to bring people like me, like Dr. Dave and many others down. We've seen people like that do absolutely horrible stuff in the past. And Dr. Dave doesn't hide his name. He doesn't hide where he lives or any of that kind of stuff. So it would be very easy for anybody to look up and find any arrest records or any history through the courts. It made reference to his alleged military service. I don't know if Dr. Dave has had any military service. I just don't know. But even if he did, those records wouldn't be accessible for, I think it's like 63 or 64 years after a person has passed away, or after a person has passed away, the family can make a request for those records. But it has to be a direct family member, and as far as I know, there's no other way of getting those records. But I stand to be corrected on that if that's the case. Now, what's the first thing a lot of us do, and I'm sure a lot of auditors do, when we come across somebody on the internet that we have an issue with, like an auditor, we look them up, we try to find details about what kind of things they've been convicted of in the past. There's a very good reason for that because it goes to somebody's credibility, it goes to whether they can be trusted or not, and I think it's actually a pretty decent thing to do. It's a really important thing to do to advise people of this person's history. For example, with some of the flat earthers and stuff I've dealt with in the past. I think it can be a pretty positive thing because I've had people email me who were of the other side and said, I didn't realize this guy was the guy who he actually is. Now that's all well and good, and I had no problem pointing out some of the things that Dr. Dave has said in the past to me, about others, to go to his credibility and whether or not he's believable and trustworthy. And I will completely reserve judgment on that right now, and I'd ask you to do the same. Because whatever about the beef between myself and Dr. Dave, him being accused of doing those absolutely horrifying things is an extremely serious allegation. It's not something that I take lightly, and it's not something that anybody should take lightly. We've seen this in the past with flat earthers calling other people these kind of things, and it does cause a lot of potential harm for people. Again, people know roughly where Dr. Dave lives, so that could cause great harm to him. People know where I live, that could cause great harm to me, etc., etc. So It's very clear that that's dangerous. Now, on the other side of that, just the allegation alone can be crushing to somebody. I've sadly seen a few scenarios over the past few years in my career where somebody has been accused of something that they hadn't done based on the evidence, and unfortunately had taken their own lives. And that is a horrifying thing for anybody to have to do, and for their families to have to go through, because somebody had an axe to grind and decided to use the most disgusting allegation possible against that person in a way to tear them down. It's like when people get upset with people on the internet and the first thing they do is call them, I can't say the word, but basically those German lads during World War II. If you catch my drift. Kinda sounds like lassies, which is why I no longer say lads and lassies at the start of my videos, because that's what YouTube thought I was saying. Anyway, now I had somebody look into these allegations, and this is somebody that's very trustworthy and has a fairly far-reaching net and can figure out what needs to be figured out. He could tell me pretty much straight up if any of these allegations are true or false. And from what was returned to me, they are absolutely 100% categorically false. Now, until I see evidence to the contrary, that's exactly the premise I'm going to go on. Those allegations against Dr. Dave, from the evidence that I've seen, are absolutely false. And from the lack of evidence from the individual that I've reached out to now on a couple of occasions for said evidence, that again shows me that these are just false accusations to try to discredit Dr. Dave. Now, be under no illusion, myself and Dr. Dave are never going to be friends. That's probably never going to happen. But things like this, what we're seeing right now, are the kind of things that come up as a result of these kind of beefs. As far as I'm concerned, the things that Dr. Dave has said about me, I've said my piece on that. I made a video the other day that I was going to put out offering Dr. Dave to do a charity live stream with me so that we could make something positive out of this and put it all to bed. I decided not to release that after I saw this hit list that was released by this Saul guy yesterday. And now he's put up some more stuff on there, some more veiled threats and things like that. And when we talk about jumping to conclusions, I think it is fair to say that I did jump to the conclusion that Dr. Dave was behind that. And on reflection, having looked back over all of those comments and things like that, I don't think he was necessarily behind it. Now, I believe he probably is fully aware of it and probably has some level of sway to be able to ask Saul to please stop doing that. Now, I'm sure Saul would disagree, but that's fine. So the person who is completely responsible for those comments, in my view, in my opinion, is Saul. Now, Saul, you might try to use this faux elegant language to try to hide your threats, but they're abundantly clear to everybody. All this stuff about if you were coming for me, that I wouldn't see it coming and all that kind of stuff, whatever, dude. You're not impressing anybody. So anyway, to close this all out, Vegas Valley Community Watch. What you have done here is an extremely dangerous and cowardly thing to do. Then trying to buddy up to the likes of me just because I have a bit of beef with Dr. Dave in the hopes that I'll back you, and then you'll have auditors and anti-auditors all turned on the one person that you don't like. That's never going to happen. Now, granted, sometimes I shoot from the hip, I talk without thinking. I definitely accept that, and I try to work on it as best I can. But with something this serious, don't think for 1 minute that I'm going to take that on board without the evidence. Now, I suspect that you will come into some level of difficulty, be it with YouTube or be it with Dr. Dave legally, over this video that you've made. It's an incredibly damaging video. Now, I'm sure the vast majority of people who watch it probably go, oh, that's obviously just an auditor spewing nonsense because he doesn't like Dr. Dave. But all it takes is that one person to take it too far. So yes, you have really put Dr. Dave at risk here. And while I don't necessarily like the man, I think that is wholly inappropriate and just absolutely wrong in every way. If somebody did something wrong, call it out, especially if it's worth calling out, like with bullying and all the rest of it. And I'm willing to call myself out too if I went too hard on somebody. If somebody does something illegal, something that really harms people, call it out, no problem. Don't make up lies about somebody, especially something so harmful and so dangerous. It's a disgusting, cowardly act. Now, I'll happily recant everything I've just said if you can provide me with evidence. But I feel like somebody like you who does all of your FOIA requests and all of these videos of auditing would have had all your ducks in a row before sending this video out. You claim that you have this evidence, please provide it. Because I feel like if you really wanted to make a big splash, you would have made this video and included that evidence. But you failed to do so. I have a tiny inkling that perhaps you found somebody with the same name who lives in a different area and stitched all of those stories together. Again, if I'm wrong and you can prove me wrong, then by all means, please do provide that evidence. But in the meantime, if you don't, then you're just a scary bitch and you're a coward for doing this. This is the sad reality of YouTube beef. It's all well and good me here making videos about Dr. Dave or about whoever, and them making videos about me, and it might be a bit snippy and a bit childish, and I fully accept that. But now you're stepping into the real world. Now you're stepping into the world where people could get really genuinely harmed. Not only their reputation, but their physical being, their mental health, all of these things. It's an incredibly silly and dangerous thing to do, just because you got a beef with somebody who disagrees with you. Anyway, folks, I'm sure there's some of you out there who think that Dr. Dave had this coming. Yeah, maybe a bit of karma was due, but this is outrageous. It's simply ridiculous. And I completely condemn it. If somebody makes up a lie, that's one thing. It's bad enough. But a lie of that magnitude absolutely sickens me. Especially when I have personally seen the effects of this in my job. Where we had people into us that were lied about and it ruined their whole lives. Or sadly ended it. So please, before you share this stuff out, I put it out and asked people, is there any evidence here? Can anybody see evidence? And for the most part, people said no. Now, some people said they didn't care whether there was or not. I don't support that. Bring the receipts or shut up. It's as simple as that. Anyway, folks, look, I'm going to leave it there. Dr. Dave, please do reach out to me. Drop me an email if you get a chance. I'd like to have a comment from you on this. I think it's only fair. As for this whole thing between you and me, whatever went on in the past, let's just put it behind us. It's not worth it. It's affecting both our channels. It's affecting our viewers. It's affecting other creators now too, and friends. And now we can see an auditor trying to use this beef to their advantage against you. As for all of the video takedowns, as for all of the nonsense that Saul has put up, all of that stuff, guys, that stuff needs to stop. From both sides. I've never asked for that channel to be taken down or anybody else's. Unless somebody is doing something genuinely harmful that could genuinely hurt somebody, then there's really no need to. If you don't like what you see, don't click on it. Or do click on it and leave your comment, leave your review, leave your video response if you want to. The saltiness has to stop. It's nonsense. Whether we like it or not, myself and Dr. Dave, along with all the other creators out there, are colleagues. It doesn't mean we have to be friends. It doesn't mean we have to get along. It doesn't even mean we have to work together. But whatever affects his channel affects mine and vice versa. Him losing subscribers isn't going to gain me subscribers. So let's put this all to bed, folks. I'm completely done with it now. Seeing that this kind of horrible stuff is happening as a result of his beef with that other guy. And as for Saul, your vendetta against me and other people, it's just silly. It's nonsense. Nobody likes an internet tough guy. So just cut it out. Stop your veiled threats and your kind of fake lawyerly talk. Well, I never actually said. We all know what was implied. And for my subscribers, thank you so much. Hit that like button, comment, subscribe, show your support, and all that good stuff. And Dr. Dave, if you would want to do a live stream, I would be happy to sit down and have a chat about this. Even if it's just watching auditor videos or something like that. No talk about our business in the past. And let's try to raise some money for charity or do something positive out of this thing, because there's so much negativity that has come out of this. I have enough negativity in my life right now. I don't need more. Again, I'm sure we'll never be buddies. I'm sure we'll never be mates, and that's fine. That's not what I'm asking for. Let's just put this to bed. Anyway, folks, sláinte.